So it's Dr. Glenn Davies for Reversal NZ and for Reverse T2 Diabetes Topor, coming to you from the greenhouse. And it's still raining and the grass is growing magnificently. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, obesity. And the point that I'm wanting to make this morning is that we talk specifically about these conditions. We talk about obesity, we talk about type 2 diabetes, we talk about hypertension, we talk about heart disease, we talk about cancer, but they're effectively all the same condition. They are effectively all insulin resistance. And that's, I think, the point that we have been missing in medicine, is that all of these chronic health conditions are all insulin resistance. So instead of calling it heart disease, instead of calling it type 2 diabetes, instead of calling it obesity, why don't we actually just call it metabolic syndrome or just call it insulin resistance? Because when we call it insulin resistance, then the solution is obvious. If the problem is insulin resistance caused by hyperinsulinemia, caused by consuming sugar and eating too much carbohydrate, then the solution is obvious. When we call it hypertension, there's really no clue as to what the solution is. When we call it obesity or overweight, again, it doesn't indicate what the solution is. And if we call it type 2 diabetes, again, it's not telling us what the solution is. So let's call all of these conditions what they are. They are all insulin resistance. And I include in there Alzheimer's disease, which is called type 3 diabetes, which is also a manifestation of insulin resistance. And also cancer. Now, cancer is a more complex condition, of course, but it is also a metabolic condition and also amenable to diet change. So what I'm going to hold up to you is this document. I know it's going to come out backwards, but it says insulin overload or insulin resistance. And what I'm going to do is just run through all of the conditions on this list which are related to insulin resistance. So neuropsychiatric conditions, Alzheimer's, peripheral neuropathy, retinopathy, neuropsychiatric disorders, Parkinson's disease and autism, gastrointestinal, type 2 diabetes and gestational diabetes, hypertriglyceridemia, which is high triglycerides, again from sugar being converted into fat by de novo lipogenesis, non-alcoholic liver disease, which is now the commonest cause of liver disease, ulcerative colitis, which is a form of inflammatory bowel disease, endocrine, so chronic inflammation, fatty liver disease, obesity, and polycystic ovary syndrome. And then the cancers, and you'll see that all of the main cancers are in here: breast, ovarian, colon, bladder, pancreas, liver, and prostate, all related to insulin resistance. And I would say prostate cancer largely caused by the overconsumption of carbohydrate and insulin fueling the growth of the prostate. Now, tinnitus, vertigo, and Meniere's disease. So tinnitus is chronic ringing in the ears, vertigo, a sensation of spinning or movement, and Meniere's disease is a condition that combines that. Now, periodontal disease, gum disease, and then circulatory conditions. So atherosclerosis, which is the narrowing of the arteries in the heart and the brain, cardiomyopathy, endocrine dysfunction, which is the small vessel disease, stroke, deep vein thrombosis and hypertension, osteoporosis, which is a bone disease, and then osteoarthritis, which is so common, and rheumatoid arthritis. So instead of calling all those conditions separate conditions, why don't we call them what they are? Insulin resistance. We then know what to do about it, which is to go onto a low carb, healthy fat, ketogenic diet, or add in intermittent fasting or prolonged fasting. So these are not separate conditions, these are one condition, and there is largely one solution. So insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome, you fix that by fixing your insulin resistance by a low carb, healthy fat or ketogenic diet. So that's the wee talk for this morning.